Welcome back, subscribers. Currently, we're on day 158 of Russia's disastrous invasion of Ukraine, and unfortunately, the top story to report today involves a video that has appeared on social media of Russian soldiers torturing and mutilating a Ukrainian prisoner of war. I personally have decided not to watch the video as I don't want these disturbing images in my head. But I have read the description from journalists who have reviewed the film, and it's pretty horrific. And the Russian soldier who did the mutilation has been visually identified because he's previously appeared in clips on RT News. This stands for Russia Today. This is Kremlin paid for propaganda TV. So more than likely, the Russian government and the Russian military knows exactly who this soldier is and where he currently is, and they're okay with what he's doing. Now, this Russian soldier does look Asian. He's probably from a Far East province of Russia, but in the video he is speaking Russian, and he is clearly a Russian soldier. And in this video today, I want to guarantee to you that justice will be served. I'm confident the Ukrainian military will find this soldier and he'll get exactly what he deserves. The next piece of horrifying news of Russia's war crimes is their deliberate bombing of a prisoner of war camp in order to kill the Azovstal defenders. 2 months ago in the city of Mariupol, the defenders holding out in the steelworks factory only willingly surrendered to Russia on the condition that they would be treated humanely as prisoners of war. Obviously, Russia was lying, and they never had any intention on keeping that agreement. And Russia, I kid you not, is actually claiming that Ukraine is the one who bombed this prisoner of war camp with a HIMARS missile and killed their own soldiers. This, of course, is absurd. Russia is gaslighting the world. Here is a satellite image of the single building that was holding all of the Azovstal defenders. And there was no damage to any other buildings or structures. No Russian guards were harmed in this incident. So Russia deliberately did this to kill these defenders, kill these prisoners of war, and they have the audacity to be blaming Ukraine. And we know that Russia wanted to kill these defenders because they've been publicly saying so for 2 months now. Here's an actual tweet from the Russian embassy. And they say, Azov militants deserve execution, but death not by firing squad, but by hanging, because they're not real soldiers. They deserve a humiliating death. This tweet violated Twitter's rules about hateful conduct, but Twitter determined it was in the public's best interest for the tweet to remain accessible. So here is a summation of what's going on from columnist Max Boot, and I think he does a good job of describing it, but it's frustrating to read news accounts which say Russia accuses Ukraine of killing 53 of its own POWs, while Ukraine accuses Russia of killing them, as if the two claims were equally plausible and the two sides equally credible. Reminder, the Russians are war criminals and liars. Which brings me to the word gaslight. I know a lot of my subscribers now, English is not their first language. So if you're not familiar with this expression, let me define it for you. And to gaslight someone is to manipulate someone psychologically so that they question their own sanity. This term comes from a 1944 film titled Gaslight. And in this movie, the husband is being psychologically abusive to his wife, and he's doing this by turning the gaslight in the room down whenever he leaves the house. So the room gets darker, it gets dimmer, and when he comes home, his wife says, I think the room is getting darker, and he gaslights her by saying, what are you talking about? This is the normal amount of light level for the room. He makes her question his own sanity when he's the one lying, he's the one causing the abuse. So Putin, for 22 years, has been gaslighting and manipulating his own people to the point where I think the Russian people have stopped resisting. They just accept whatever Putin says, they accept whatever the Kremlin says. And with this absurd invasion of Ukraine, talking about Nazis and biolabs and all this other nonsense, Putin is gaslighting the world, and he's taking this straight out of the Nazi playbook. So here's a famous quote from Joseph Goebbels. "If you tell a lie big enough and keep repeating it, people will eventually come to believe it. The lie can be maintained only for such a time as the state can shield the people from political, economic, and/or military consequences of the lie. It thus becomes vitally important for the state to use all of its powers to repress dissent, for the truth is the mortal enemy of the lie, and thus by extension, the truth is the greatest enemy of the state." So in Russia, they don't have freedom of speech, they don't have freedom of press, they don't have free and fair elections. So Vladimir Putin and the Kremlin can lie all they want, and as long as they keep repeating that lie, then the Russian people just accept it. They just believe it. But for those living in free societies, we should not be entertaining these lies, such as Ukraine bombed and killed their own people, because there's a mountain of forensic evidence to prove otherwise. Here's a thread from Thomas Theiner. I'll link this down below. And it was clearly not a GMLRS rocket, a HIMARS rocket, that struck this prisoner of war camp. It was a thermobaric weapon. So why did Russia do this? And in short, Russia staged it because Russia never wanted to return the Azovstal defenders to Ukraine, where they would receive a hero's welcome. In order for this war to end someday, both sides are going to have to release and return their prisoners of war, and this would have included the Azovstal defenders, who would have been welcomed home as heroes. So Russia always wanted to kill these men, but just executing them would result in war crime charges and also endanger Russian POWs in Ukrainians' hands. So instead, they just fabricated a scenario saying that Ukraine accidentally or deliberately killed their own soldiers with a HIMARS missile. This is at the same time that the HIMARS weapon system has been giving Ukrainians a lot of hope that they can potentially win this war. So this was a two-propaganda win for Russia in their eyes, fabricating this lie. Weaken the heroism of the HIMARS system while simultaneously kill the soldiers they always wanted to kill. And Russia is really bad at lying. This is obviously a false flag attack, and they're showing images of fragments of a HIMARS missile saying, look, we found the remnants of the HIMARS missile in the prisoner of war camp. The problem is that they use these exact same videos and images from a previous attack in Zaporozhye. So they're so stupid and they're so lazy, they didn't even bother to take the same fragments and re-edit, re-film them on site. They just took the pictures and images from a previous attack that was broadcast on Russian state TV, and they just said, look, HIMARS fragments, obviously it's Ukraine who killed their own soldiers. So what can we do to support Ukraine, get them the weapons and the assistance they need in order to win this war? They've made a lot of progress this month. The next positive development is that they've taken out a strategic rail bridge in the Kherson region north of the Dnieper River. So in my last couple update videos, I've explained to you that there's only 3 places that the Russian military can cross this river. There's the Olenivka bridge, this is the rail bridge, and then there's the hydroelectric dam. So the Olenivka bridge has been successfully rendered unusable. They've now taken out the rail bridge, and all Russia can do is build temporary pontoon bridges, but those are even easier to destroy with a HIMARS rocket. There is plenty of videos and pictures of these bridges being destroyed. I'll just show you a couple seconds of this one.
Конечно, будет не вывода снять, но как мы туда попадем.
Сейчас я залезу. Сейчас сделаю.
Смотри аккуратно, чтобы не навернуться. Залез.
A Russian train carrying military equipment is definitely not getting across this rail bridge. So it's been devastating for the Russian forces the last 3 or 4 weeks, especially as the HIMARS missile system continues to take out command posts, fuel warehouses, and ammunition depots. And experts are now saying that Russia's hopes of taking the entire Donbass region this summer, or potentially even this year, just isn't going to happen. Now, Vladimir Putin and people who support Russia can make excuses because a month ago, Russia announced this operational pause for their soldiers to regroup and then plan the new offensive to take the rest of the Donbass region. But the month of July is almost over. We're heading into August. If you've been in an operational pause for over a month, at some point you just have to stop making excuses and admit the truth that your military is being decimated by these GMLRS rockets. Let's now pivot and talk about just some bad news for Russia, because this always makes me feel better. But a ship carrying Ukrainian stolen grain tried to dock in Lebanon, and Lebanon, after a couple days, decided they were going to impound and seize the ship as Russia was trying to traffic and deliver stolen Ukrainian grain. Thank you, Lebanon. India has decided to ground their entire fleet of MiG-21 fighter jets by 2025. They're dissatisfied with the performance of these Russian-made military planes, so potentially India is going to be buying fewer Russian military arms, and in the future they'll buy from somebody else. Thank you, India. Lithuania has announced they're going to provide more military aid for Ukraine. For such a small country, it's very impressive everything that the Baltic states have been doing. Lithuania's defense ministry reports it will provide Ukraine with 10 more M113 APCs and packages of explosives and smoke grenades. Lithuania has also offered to train Ukrainian mechanics. Next piece of bad news for the average Russian soldier is, surprise, surprise, Vladimir Putin lies, and the Russian state is not upholding their promise to them. So a week into the war, Vladimir Putin announced that injured Russian soldiers would be compensated with 3 million rubles. This is about $50,000 or 4 years' worth of wages for the average Russian. So this is a big deal if you were injured in this limited special military operation. However, Russian soldiers are returning home wounded, and the state basically isn't responding to their letters or calls. 2 of Putin's top Russian pilots were killed by HIMARS strikes this month. This was confirmed. There was a lieutenant colonel, age 41, and a colonel, age 54. And just think about that. Between these 2 men combined, they had more than 30 years worth of military training and flight experience. This is experience that the Russian state should have retained, really needed, but these 2 men are now dead in Vladimir Putin's senseless war. No matter what the Kremlin says, the sanctions against Russia are working and catastrophically crippling its economy. This is according to a study put out by Yale University. 5 months into the invasion of Ukraine, Russia's economy is imploding from the sweeping international sanctions and especially the corporate exodus. This is what is really hurting Russia. The corporate exodus of Russia has reversed nearly 30 years worth of foreign investments, as these foreign companies accounted for 40% of Russia's GDP, and they're ending all of their operations, they're liquidating all of their assets in the country, they're pulling all of their money and investments out. Screw Russia. Let's pivot now and share some happy stories about Ukraine. I found this article on Radio Free Europe, and it's titled, "Later Might Never Happen, Ukraine's Wartime Wedding Rush I'll link this down below for you if you want to read some of these stories and see some of these pictures, but these are of Ukrainian defenders choosing to get married. Oftentimes they're at the front, oftentimes they're in uniform, and despite their homes being destroyed by the Russians, they're still choosing to celebrate love and celebrate happiness, celebrate each other, and do their best to live their lives how they want to live it, free of Russian rule. Here's a funny video I found I want to share with you of a Ukrainian defender who converted a stretch limo into a vehicle for use by the armed forces.
Да что это за тигр такой едет? Ёбушки-воробушки, сука! Скажи, это прям... Это пиздец. Как это? Это круче, чем этот САУ. Скажи, братан, вообще посмотри на него, блядь. Это просто пиздец. HIMARS отдыхает. Вообще сильно. Едем? Да. Поехали.
That's pretty hilarious. I really enjoy that. The last clip I want to share with you guys is from a YouTube channel called Glamour Days, and it's titled A Day at the Beach, 1928, Odessa, Ukraine. So somebody found footage from Odessa in the 1920s. This is obviously silent and black and white at the time, and they used an AI in order to enhance the film, colorize it, and add sounds. And I think it's pretty cool, so let me just share this with you.
Харчування, я думаю, що звичайно. Гроші. Приїжджай. Мені трошки.
Happier days will eventually return again. Glory to the heroes, glory to Ukraine. That's all for this update video. If you found it informative, give me a thumbs up. Really helps out with the channel. Comments or questions, let me know down below. I love hearing from you guys. Till the next video, take care, be safe.